Alright, so this is my video diary for the rest of my Guatemala trip. And so that would include, I think, Friday the 18th, Saturday the 19th, and Sunday the 20th. So Friday we left and went up to, headed up to Tikal. It was supposed to be like an 8-hour drive in this little van, but it ended up being close to 13 hours. So let me tell you a little bit about how that van ride went. We took off out of Antigua, and then you kind of wind up the mountain and you go over into Guatemala City. Now Guatemala City has, I don't know how many millions of people, but it is crowded, congested, polluted, and it's just this big city that's not very safe. It's kind of a mess. There was, I took some pictures of some like telephone wires and stuff in there. Instead of just having one or two or three on a pole, they're laying over the top of each other and crisscrossing. It was really something. So traffic's bad, and we kind of putt along through there, and we make it until we start rising up out of Guatemala City on our way. We're heading on over to Rio Dulce, which is kind of over by Livingston, which is by Belize, which is on the Caribbean side of the Gulf of Mexico. So that's kind of where we're heading, and we're clear over in the middle of Guatemala, which is just below Mexico. And so anyway, we take off, and we're going up these hills, and the roads are, they're decent 2-lane roads. I guess they're not too bad, but we start winding up this mountain, and this construction project starts. And at first, it's really weird. It's like half the mountain is like missing. How they tear down part of the mountain to like cut through the roads. But they're using some heavy equipment, but there's a lot of people, a lot of guys out there just with shovels, and they're putting in curb and gutter on these new roads, and they're flattening the new road and getting it level. And so there's a lot of people actually just doing manual labor. It's so unlike here in the U.S. where, the machine does most of the labor. This was men doing the labor, so it was really interesting to watch. So we got to wind through and watch this construction all the way along. And then we get on kind of on the other side where they've got some of it done, and then it's this beautiful 3-lane road, but there's no stripes, and there's, it's because they're not done with it. So it's just this big 3-lane road where people just race along. In Guatemala, there are posted speed limits, but nobody advises them, and there's nobody to enforce them. So there's no police. I don't know, it's very random, but you'd come across there's an army presence there, so you come across these roadblocks, and what they'd do is they'd take the tire tread off these big trucks, and it was just this thin piece of rubber, and they'd throw it out like a speed bump in the middle of the road, and then all these army guys were there. And so they would stop you, and one of them, they called it a fruit check, where they actually were looking for fruit, but it was more, they were looking to come and search in your car. So you had to, if the lights were off, you had to turn on all the lights, or if it was day, they looked through some of your bags, and then they, would usually let you by without too much problem. Although we did have to take copies of our passports with us so that they could see them if we needed them. So anyway, we're still on this road, and bebopping along. It's getting, it's quite nice, and then all of a sudden it just gets really bad again, like the other side of the project. So they started on 2 different sides to meet in the middle. And then there's all this congestion. So then you've got cars going uphill, cars going downhill, and they're all just at a dead stop. So here comes the 8 hours. It starts to come. We're in traffic the whole way, and so we get to kind of up in the middle of nowhere, and we stop for dinner, and then they tell us we're about 8 hours into it now. and then they stop and tell us that it's going to be at least another 4 more hours. So we don't end up getting to our hotel until about 1 in the morning. I was just fit to be tied. We were in this van, and it was a nice enough van. It actually had air conditioning for Guatemala standards. It would be, it would be a lovely van, and comfortable. But we had the seats were like 6 inches from the side of the door, 6 or 8 inches, so you couldn't like lean your head over because it would have been like a big space, and your head would have had to been like this. It was very uncomfortable, so you couldn't sleep. So anyway, this kid that I was on the seat with, we ended up finally, he laid down on the floor, and then I laid across the seat, but you still couldn't get any rest. So I was very cranky and tired when I got there. And then the next day, well, actually, we got to our hotel room, and it was about 1 or 2 in the morning, and then we had to be up and ready to go by 6:30, I think, or 7. And so we didn't get to bed till about 2, so we had 5 hours of sleep for the next day. And this is a jam-packed weekend. We are going to see a whole bunch of different things. So today, Saturday, we were taking off for the Tikal ruins. So we still had another few-hour drive. Maybe not a few hours, maybe an hour. And so we got to, we got to the Tikal ruins, and they were very exciting, very cool ruins. There was like 5 different temples in the residential part of the ruins, and then I took a bunch of pictures of these big, temples where the rich people live. So there was beautiful trees and temples, and we saw spider monkeys and this other monkey that made some horrible screeching noise. I don't know what it was, but it was pretty funny to listen to. And then we got there and we saw this big toucan bird with a great big beak. And so we got to take some pictures of that, and we walked around the ruins for 3 or 4 hours. They would let you climb them on these big stairs that went up and up and up, and these rickety stairs, and then you get these beautiful views. And supposedly the Mayan temples, they've only discovered, I don't know the exact numbers, very few. So we were on 6, and there were supposedly like 40 to 70,000 more of these different sites that they hadn't uncovered, because the Guatemalan government or people don't have the money to go out and excavate them. The jungle grows up over them, and then they become no longer visible. So the guide showed us kind of out these different humps where they thought more of the ruins would be. And it lightly rained a little bit that day, but for the most part it was very nice. We had a great time there, but I was very tired and cranky, and my stomach hurt from the night before laying on that seat. And so, I really enjoyed the ruins. I've saw ruins before, with my daddy-o in Cozumel. Actually, it was over in Cancun. We saw the, what's the name of those? Where we flew into some more Mayan ruins over on the Cancun side. But these ruins were beautiful. We had a lot of fun hiking around, taking a lot of pictures. And then we got back in the van, and we drove back to the place where we first stopped the night before to have dinner, this Rio Dulce. And then we checked into our hotel and dropped our bags off, and then we headed on our next adventure for the day, which was the boat trip. So we got on this boat, and we went down the river. We went on this river that hooks into the Gulf of Mexico, so down to the sea. So it was this little boat, and it was a lot of fun. We got in, and we rode down there, and then we went to this big fort, and we were able to get out and go take some pictures and explore this fort for a while. And then we took off and went and had lunch on the water to this place. I think it was Kangaroo Bay or something. It was this little bed and breakfast. And Lonely Planet, which is a book that is put out about different cities, and it's kind of hard to get into it. But anyway, we met this Australian guy, and he got into the Lonely Planet and was able, and then his business was just flourishing. So we went there for lunch. It's just up this beautiful river. And then you're up in just kind of like that's all there is. It's just these little cabins or whatever that are on stilts on the river. So we stopped there and had lunch, and then we got to go down a little further into Livingston, which is right on the bay, the Gulf of Mexico, excuse me. So we're coming out the river down on the ocean. And, oops, I went by a little piece of information. We stopped at these hot pots before. So it was this hot water coming out of the side of this mountain, and then it was right on the river. So the cold water was mixing with the hot water. It was very cool. But anyway, so then we went on to Livingston, and that's where we had lunch. We went up into the city, and from the boat ride, you could see over into Belize, which I want to get to one day. I don't know if I will or not, but I'm going to try. And then we had lunch at this wonderful place. I had a lobster. I think it was 220 quetzales, and it's about 7.75 quetzales per dollar, so it was about $30. But I had this beautiful medium-sized lobster. It was really good. And so then we jump back in the boat, and we head back up the river to our hotel, which is kind of right on the river. And then, let's see, what did we do? We had a chance to change from there, and then we started the trip back. So it was probably about 6 or 7 hours the ride back. You're passing along these beautiful rolling hills and roads, and although the roads may be bad at some points, the culture and the way of living that you get to see. There's people walking along with sticks bundled on their back, and then it comes down and hooks on this rag on their head, and then the sticks are tied up. And that's how people live there. Is they're hunters and gatherers, so they have to go out and hunt something to eat, and then they cook it on the stove. Very poor people. There's not a whole lot going on, but they seem happy. We met some people along the way, and they said that they just don't know any different. That's what I thought anyway. But you get to see this beautiful countryside and the way people really live, and you're going along in this van, and the misery that I felt the first day in the van reminds me of the pain, that they must go through every day that they're alive. So, I mean, I'm sure there's periods of joy, but it's probably hard for them to live, like they do. So, anyway, I drew a conclusion that although it was rough for me in the van and that I had a rough time, some people never get to escape their pain, and I think that that's true a lot of the Guatemalan people. It's just day after day of hard times, and so I think I got to experience about one day of their misery. I don't know if it was anywhere near comparable, but so anyway, then we get back to the hotel, and this is our last night. So we take a lot of pictures with people, and we get up at 7 and have a nice breakfast, and then we go down to Maximilianville and check out and do our surveys and everything, and then come back to the house. And the van driver came, so we say goodbye to everybody, and I'm going to miss all the people in Guatemala, but I made it back safely, so I'm actually home now. I had a layover in Atlanta, and then I made it back. So this trip, what it meant to me is a total life-changing event. I will never take anything for granted like I have in the past. I appreciate everything I have. I'm super grateful. At first I felt like I was a wealthy American, even though I'm not that wealthy. But I really am very quite rich and